something who I was talking to you earlier today, hadn't trained with you a while and came in, and I remembered you don't use round timers. And I'm so used to training on round timers, 5-minute rounds, and just that no round timer. Like, why do you do that? For one, for an athlete, it's hard for us to not see the time. So as a coach,
if you look at most athletic endeavors, they're always the boundaries are set by a clock. And if you look at the effect of the clock on the way the mind works, it's pretty interesting. There's an old cliche that always gets thrown around that if you throw a man into the ocean and you just fly off, he'll be dead in 3 minutes. But if you take that same man, you throw him into the ocean and you say, we'll be back in 24 hours to pick you up, he will find a way to survive. And he'll be there alive in 24 hours. What's the difference? Because time gives you hope. And as long as you have that hope, you'll fight. But if there's no hope, you'll just accept the situation and drown. Same thing when you put a clock on the wall. When you tell someone this is going to be a 5-minute round, if it's going badly for them, in their head, they're just saying one mantra, 2 minutes left, survive. And they'll fight all the way through to that 5 minutes and they'll survive it. But if you put 2 guys on the mat and you just say, just go, let's see what happens. If they feel that they're losing and they fall apart mentally, that's a sign of some kind of mental weakness. The only thing when you're not going to get saved by the clock that will save you is your technique. And so it creates a mindset in students where the only thing they know they can rely on is their own technique. They will learn the technique. But when they learn to rely on the clock to save them, the progress quickly dissipates.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Like when I'm in shape, it's never a problem. But, if I'm not in shape, like, oh crap, the clock and it's not there, it can start messing with your head. It makes you think, oh, what do I do? And that's when you really better start relying on technique.
Yeah. And when your question is, what should I do? And you don't have the answer, it's a terrifying feeling. So what's your solution? Learn more.
Yeah,
work on skills.
Right. The goal of take, look at the clock. Oh, a minute. I could easily just coast through this.
Never see the clock as your salvation. See your technique and tactics as your salvation. So when you train without a clock, that's what you see.
Yeah, you also split. I already did when I walked in, you do a lot of things similar to how I do, which I love because it's, a lot of things people say I'm not doing right. But then something I started copying when I teach now is you usually do like half of your rounds positionals. And I think that's great. Starting in bad positions. It makes
usually a lot more than half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes you better at finishing and escaping.
Yeah. Most people, let's say you have 2 athletes train with each other and sparring for 20 minutes. If you actually break down the activities of that 20 minutes, you will find that 3/4 of it is spent in neutral positions where the athletes really don't engage. They're looking for some kind of tactical advantage. And so out of a 20-minute sparring session, only 5 minutes is engaged in technique, which takes you through to a submission victory. If you start them in positional rounds, you start someone in a winning position, or from the other guy's perspective, a losing position, then you get the exact opposite. Now, 3/4 of the training time is spent in positions where you win or you lose. And so you create athletes who spend the vast majority of their training time in winning or losing positions. So they literally learn how to win, as opposed to how to engage or skirmish with their opponent. If you look at people who only spar in neutral position, they're skirmishers. They never learn how to dominate. They never learn how to control someone in potentially match-winning positions and get the job done. So I always have my students start in positions where you can either win a match or lose a match, and that's where the vast majority of their training is done. And then that takes down the problem of neutral skirmishing and reduces the amount of time wasted in those situations.
Yeah, things like mount escape, for example. I so rarely got mounted before I trained with you that my mount escape wasn't that good. Now, putting him on a mount, other than like Gordon, I can usually just blow him right off.
Everyone, the progress everyone manifests is directly related to the time they spend in those situations. If you look at, for example, I've seen people like Gordon or Nicholas get mounted on world-class opponents. And if you look at those world-class opponents, once Gordon or Nicholas gets mounted on them, they look like they've never done a mount escape in their life. And the reason for that is simple, because they probably haven't done a mount escape in the last 15 years. They're so good that when they work out with their friends, no one ever gets mounted on them. So then that one day it does finally happen, they find to their horror that they're no more experienced at getting out of the mount than the white belts in the class. So they just don't practice it. You're only as good as what you practice. Like, you're a direct reflection of the sophistication and the amount of time you spend in those positions. And if you haven't spent any time there and you got no sophistication, you're not getting out. And you'll see many times Gordon and Nicholas get mounted on people who they're very good, but they don't look good in those positions simply because they've never been exposed to them in the last 15 years. The last time someone got mounted on them, they were probably a white belt. Whereas with my students, literally every single day, they start in the worst positions in the sport and the best positions. So they know how to win from the best positions, and they know how to avoid losing in the worst positions.
Yeah, something I'm really impressed with Gordon. He's able to put his ego away.
Emily, shop like a billionaire.
Impressed with Gordon. He's able to put his ego away. Like one time, well, a lot of times, people would be like, oh, I did good with Gordon. And a big guy I tapped like 10 times. So I know he didn't really do good with Gordon. But one time I saw him with a top athlete. He let this guy put him in his best move. The guy ended up actually tapping Gordon first. He puts him there again. I think Gordon eventually got out. He has to put him there 4 or 5 more times, and Gordon's just escaping like that. And then you see the guy realize he's the one that just got played. At first, he's like, oh, I tapped Gordon. And then it's like, wait a second, Gordon just downloaded my best move and can escape at ease. And just remember watching that being like, wow, that was Gordon just played this guy.
Most people approach sparring in terms of winning and losing. They say, I beat that guy. That's their mindset. You either won the sparring round or you lost the sparring round. Now, that's good to build match preparation, mental toughness. I'm not saying these things are worthless. Yeah. They have a value. But for me, the most valuable attribute or the most valuable way in which you can use sparring time is in terms of experimentation. And you have to use sparring to experiment. Where are your weaknesses? Where are your strengths? What needs to be changed? So when you see someone who's particularly strong at a given move, that's an opportunity to experiment. And if, let's say he has a phenomenal guillotine, okay, well, let's test our guillotine defenses. Let's put our head into the hornet's nest and see what happens. Let's test our ability to defend a guillotine versus his ability to employ one. And whenever you expose yourself to risks like that, of course, you're going to get submitted multiple times. It's going to happen a lot. That's why we put, very little weight on who gets tapped by who in the gym, because 9 times out of 10, it's an experiment that they're looking at. And now, if you're engaged in, pre-ADCC training where it's a competitive round starting in a neutral position where you're simulating a match, well, then you'll see the A game, and then you'll see who the best guy in the gym is.
Yeah, I think it's important what you just said, if you're doing, it's good to experiment, but certain days you go in there and you're not experimenting, and make sure you're very clear those days you're battling. And you would do that sometimes. We'd have days where you'd go in, you'd actually separate the good guys together. Sometimes we'd be trained together too much, and you'd be like, no, get some easy rounds. Yeah. Then we'd come in on the weekends when hardly anyone was there. And sometimes we would just only good people and just battle. Some rough days. It's just like every round, is just going to be a killer session. Yeah, no, it's tough when you've just had what you thought was like the toughest round of the week, and then your next sparring partner is Gordon Ryan. Yeah, right. You're just like, are you some fucking kidding me, bro? For Abu Dhabi. Yeah. So, but that kind of training is what creates very tough competitive athletes too. Yeah, it's Sunday morning, and you got to train with like Nicky Rodriguez, Gordon Ryan, Gary Tone, and you're looking at the mats being like, why do I do this? There's not even very much. Well, now there's money in jiu-jitsu finally. Yeah, that's a positive thing. And but yeah, back when you started jiu-jitsu, there was literally zero money in it. You actually paid to compete, and so I'm happy to see the athletes are getting much better compensation today than they were back in the day.
Hey guys, most people study jiu-jitsu through instructionals that look clean, but they don't show what actually works under pressure. Here we learn from matches, where technique is proven when everything's on the line. That's how you cut through the noise and see what truly works when it matters. On my Patreon, you'll find free breakdowns from the newest matches I can't post on YouTube, full studies, and complete guides, all built to help you improve faster and train smarter. You can start free right now. The link's in the description and pinned comment. And if you're new, subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss the next study.